So today we'll learn about propositions. The objectives of today's lesson. First, we need to illustrate and symbolize propositions. Second, distinguish between simple and compound propositions. Then, perform the different types of operations on propositions. Let's start with an exploratory activity. Are you ready? Now, we have here the direction. Determine whether each statement is a proposition or not. Let's have the first statement. All Filipinos are hospitable. Is it a proposition or not? The answer, it's a proposition. Let's move on to the second statement. All cows are brown. Is it a proposition or not? Again, it's a proposition. Third, why is he good? Is it a proposition or not? The answer, not a proposition. Let's go to the fourth statement. A rose is red. Is it a proposition or not? It's a proposition. Then, the fifth one, congratulations. Is it a proposition or not? Not a proposition. So we have here 5 examples of statements, whether it's a proposition or not. And the 6th one we have here, this is a false statement. Is it a proposition or not? The answer, not a proposition. Let's do questions. How did you come up with your answer? And based from the answers, what is a proposition? Now we will discuss about the proposition. What is a proposition? When we say proposition, it is a declarative sentence that is either true or false, but not both. If a proposition is true, then its true value is true, which is denoted by letter T. Otherwise, its truth value is false, which is denoted by F. So again, proposition is a declarative sentence, meaning it ends with a period. And it could be either true or false, not both. So meaning a sentence that could be determined as true or false. If you cannot determine if it's true or false, then it is not a proposition. Going back to our activity, numbers 3 and 5, they are not proposition. Number 3 statement is, why is he good? And the 5th statement is, congratulations. So, in the activity, numbers 3 and 5 are not proposition because they are not declarative sentence. Both did not end with a period. The other one is statement number 6. This is a false statement. For number 6, we cannot identify whether the statement is true or false. False, because if the statement is true, then the statement is false. Meaning, if the statement this is a false statement is true, meaning the content of the statement becomes false, or vice versa. This is not a proposition because we cannot identify the truth value of the statement. Propositions are usually denoted by small letters. For example, everyone should study logic. So this could be denoted or symbolized as letter P or small p, or it could be any other letter as long as it is in small letters. Then we have here other symbols used to symbolize propositions. We have here negation, or the use of the word not. Negation here has a symbol of a wave-like line. So we have there negation. So when we negate a statement, it contains the word not. We have also here conjunction. We already meet the conjunction in our English class, which is a part of speech that connects clauses, phrases, or sentences together. And we have 7 common conjunctions. We have the for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. But here in logic, we have conjunction with the use of and. Here, it's an operation on 2 logical values. So we connect 2 logical values with the word and. Okay? And the symbol of conjunction here in logic is the arrow up. Next is disjunction. When you hear the word disjunction, you automatically have the word separation. But here in logic, disjunction means combining. Combining 2 statements with the use of or. And the symbol used for disjunction is arrow down, or similarly letter V, but it is an arrow down. Then conditional if then. So we already made conditional statements when we are in grade 8 math and also in grade 9 English. So if then. If statement talks about the hypothetical situation, while the then statement is about the consequence or the conclusion, with the symbol being used, which is an arrow going to the right. Now let's have some examples of the propositions and the use of negation, conjunction, disjunction, and conditional. Example, here we have 2 propositions, the proposition P and proposition Q. Proposition P with the statement one is lazy, and proposition Q with the statement one keeps on sleeping. The negation not. So when you negate proposition P, the statement becomes Juan is not lazy. And for proposition Q, if we negate proposition Q, it becomes Juan does not keep on sleeping. Moving on to conjunction. So when we connect 2 propositions, example P and Q, becomes Juan is lazy and he keeps on sleeping. Or we have here another example, Q and P, Juan keeps on sleeping and he is lazy. Let's have the disjunction or. So we have here P or Q, which means here as Juan is lazy or he keeps on sleeping. And the other example, Q or P, Juan keeps on sleeping or he is lazy. Next, we have the conditional if then. If P then Q, we have here, if Juan is lazy, then he keeps on sleeping. And if Q and P, we have here the statement, if Juan keeps on sleeping, then he is lazy. Here, the simple proposition and compound proposition. When we say simple proposition, it contains only one idea, while compound proposition, it is composed of at least 2 simple propositions joined together by logical connectives. It could be joined with the use of the conjunction and, disjunction or by the conditional if then. We have here an example. He studies very hard. So he studies very hard is example of simple proposition. In compound proposition, we have here, if you study very hard, then you will get good grades. So we can see here there are two simple propositions inside the compound proposition. The first simple proposition there is you study very hard, and the second simple proposition there is you will get good grades. So the compound proposition, if you study very hard, then you will get good grades, composed of two simple proposition. It is under conditional. We have next example here. Mars has two satellites. So Mars has two satellites. It's a simple proposition. An example of compound proposition here. Mars has two satellites and it is next to Earth. We have two simple propositions in this compound proposition. Mars has two satellites and it is next to Earth. So I guess you already know the difference between simple proposition and compound proposition. So let's move on to the next. So we're done with our discussion. Let's have our activities. Let's start with the first activity. The first activity would like us to determine whether each statement is a proposition or not. So again, what is a proposition? It's a declarative sentence that could be either true or false, not both. So let's start. Number 1. Why are you bad? Is it a proposition or not? The answer is not a proposition because this is not a declarative sentence. Second, the sun rises at the east. Is it a proposition or not? The answer, it's a proposition because it is a declarative sentence and it is a true statement. So based in our science, that sun rises at the east. Let's have the third sentence. Surprise! Is it a proposition or not? Answer, not a proposition. Again, this is not a declarative sentence. It is an exclamatory sentence. So it is not a proposition. Let's have the fourth sentence. Or I mean fourth statement. Feed the dogs. Is it a proposition or not? Answer, not a proposition. Feed the dogs is an imperative sentence, meaning you are asking or you are requesting somebody to feed the dogs. Okay, so not a proposition. Number 5, Cory Aquino is the first lady president of the Philippines. Is it a proposition or not? The answer, proposition. So this is a declarative statement and is a true statement based on our Philippine politics class that Cory Aquino is the first lady president of the Philippines. We learned this through our Araling Panlipunan class, or also in our politics class in grade 11. Now let's move on to our second activity. For our second activity, we have here determine whether the proposition is simple or compound. Simple or compound. Again, we say simple, one idea only. And we say compound, composed of at least two simple propositions. Are you ready? Now let's start with the first statement. Mindanao is an island in the Philippines. Simple or compound? Answer, simple. Next, 2 plus 3 is 5. Simple or compound? simple. Because it's only one idea. The third statement, if you can drive, then you have a driver's license. Simple or compound? Answer, compound. We have here the two simple propositions. You can drive and you have a driver's license. The use of if-then, so it's a conditional statement. Now let's have number 4. Grass is green. Simple or compound? Answer, simple. Let's move on to the fifth statement. Einstein is a physicist and Lawrence was his professor. Simple or compound? Answer, compound. So we have here two simple propositions combined with the word and. So we are using here conjunction and. Let's move on to the sixth statement. She watches TV or she plays tennis. Simple or compound? Answer is compound. We have here the use of or. So we have here disjunction combining two simple propositions with the use of or. Next, let's have 7. Juan likes apples and oranges. Simple or compound? The answer is simple. So Juan likes both apples and oranges. Just have one idea. Now let's have the last statement, the 8th statement. If you live in Asia, then you are an Asian. Simple or compound? Answer, compound. I hope you got 8 out of 8. Now we're done with activity number 2. Let's move on to activity number 3. For activity number 3, we need to do the task as indicated. We have here 3 propositions, the proposition P, Q, and R. The statement for proposition P is public storm signal number 1 strikes. Our proposition Q, we have here elementary classes are suspended. And for proposition R, students should stay at home. So for our task, first task, transform the following statements into symbols. For our first statement, students should not stay at home or elementary classes are not suspended. Looking at here, we are using in the middle of the statement the disjunction or. So we have two simple propositions here. Students should not stay at home and elementary classes are not suspended. The first statement, the first proposition here, students should not stay at home, is the negation of R, while elementary classes are not suspended is a negation of Q. So we have here the negation of R, disjunction, negation of Q. So our symbol will be this one. It's a disjunction of both negation of R and Q. Let's have our second statement. If public storm signals number 1 strikes, then elementary classes are suspended and students should stay at home. Looking at this, we have 3 propositions. The first proposition, public storms signal number 1 strikes. It's the proposition P. Then elementary classes are suspended. That's proposition Q. And that's the use of conjunction and. Students should stay at home. That's proposition R. So our symbol will be the if P, then Q conjunction R. we have this answer. And lastly, elementary classes are not suspended and students should not stay at home. So we can see here the first proposition is the negation of Q, and the second proposition is the negation of R, and they use here conjunction. So our symbol here becomes our negation of Q conjunction, which is the arrow up, and then negation of R. So this is our answer. I hope you got it. Now let's move on to the second task of activity 3. Now let's have our second task for activity number 3 with the same given the three propositions P, Q, and R. For our second activity, or for the second task of the third activity, we have to translate the following symbols into statements. Let's start with the first symbol we have here, the disjunction of P, Q, and the disjunction of R. So, what would be our statement? So, looking at the given propositions, so we can have the answer as either public storm signal number 1 strikes, or elementary classes are suspended, or students should stay at home. So we can use the word either or because we have here the use of the operation disjunction. Let's move on to the second symbols. If P, then the conjunction of Q to the negation of R. So start with FP, then Q, and not R. So our answer is, let's have our answer. If public storm signal number 1 strikes, then elementary classes are suspended and students should not stay at home. Now let's have the third one. If P or Q, then R. So you have here the symbol if P or Q. So then R. So in a statement, if either public storm signal number 1 strikes or elementary classes are suspended, then students should stay at home. I hope you got it. The three activities. To transfer your understanding. So your task is to write a journal and create a real-life situations where the knowledge of propositions can be applied. This is fun. Thank you very much. That's all for the proposition. See you next time about the truth value of our conjunction, disjunction, and the conditionals. And also, thank you very much.